Each of these GRE verbal wrong answer traps shows up on regular reading comprehension, critical reasoning style reading comprehension, text completion, and sentence equivalence. I'm Erika with Target Test Prep, and today I want to share 5 of the most common GRE verbal wrong answer traps that appear across all GRE verbal question types. We'll talk about how you can recognize each answer trap in the context of each question type, so you can be sure to identify and avoid them in your practice and on test day. GRE verbal wrong answer trap number 1 is the opposite answer choice. This answer choice is the exact inverse of the correct answer. Now, you might think that this answer would be very obviously incorrect. Why would you fall for the most wrong answer? But the opposite answer trap is surprisingly tricky. In critical reasoning, usually the opposite answer choice shows up in the form of a weakener on a strengthen question or a strengthener on a weaken question, essentially the correct answer to a different but still test realistic question. And this is tricky, not only because it's easy to forget or get confused about what it is we're meant to be doing, but also because these answers, as the exact inverse of the correct answer, often have the right words and ideas in them, just the wrong relationship between them. In reading comprehension, I find that these are often very subtle. Opposite answers may be a totally valid correct answer choice, just with the word not added, something that's extremely easy to miss if we're moving quickly and focusing on keywords from the passage. There are also the treacherous not and accept questions, where the question asks you to find the one answer choice that doesn't meet a certain specification, and where the not or accept that indicates this, despite being heavily emphasized in the question stem, is very frequently overlooked by test takers, who end up picking one of 4 opposite wrong answer choices. In sentence equivalence and text completion, it's a similar situation to reading comprehension, but here instead of missing a not in the answer choice, we're missing a not or other contrast transition word in the passage itself. So instead of looking for an answer choice that contrasts with the keyword in the passage, we look for an answer choice that correlates with it. The second verbal wrong answer trap is the answer choice that's almost right. Unlike the last one, it's obvious why this answer choice is tricky. It's extremely close to the right answer, with just a little something a little bit off. In both critical reasoning and reading comprehension, these most frequently take the form of an answer choice that has one extra word or phrase that makes the answer choice wrong. Extremely easy to miss if you're moving quickly. There's also a fun version of the almost right answer choice where the first half of the answer choice is right, but the second half is wrong, leading overeager test takers to select that answer prematurely. This is super common on questions with 2 elements, boldface questions being the classic example. In sentence equivalence and text completion, almost right answers don't have an extra word, but rather an extra meaning to the word. These answers tend to feel right. They tend to have the correct baseline meaning, but if we follow through and test them in the blank, we find that the word or phrase adds a weird flavor that doesn't fit the passage, an implication we aren't trying to make, a variation of tone we aren't trying to take. Our next verbal wrong answer choice is the too extreme answer choice. This can be thought of as a variation of the almost right answer choice, but it's so ubiquitous that it deserves its own call out. The too extreme answer choice is pretty straightforward. It takes all the components that lead to our correct answer, and then it takes them too far. In critical reasoning, this answer trap is seen frequently in inference and assumption questions. Inference and assumption questions ask for answers that must be true. The too extreme answer trap presents something that could be true, but doesn't have to be. These typically feature absolutes, all, always, must. This is in contrast to correct answers, which may feature more reserved language. Some, sometimes, could. In reading comprehension, we see the same thing in inference questions, but we also see it in tone or purpose questions, where the too extreme answer choice captures the directionality of the point of view presented in the passage, but at the wrong intensity. A criticism becomes a complete disavowal, a point in favor becomes full-throated endorsement, a suggestion becomes a demand. In sentence equivalence and text completion, this is again an intensity of tone issue, an answer choice that dials up the emotional weight beyond what the passage calls for. Happy to ecstatic, sad to morose, interest to obsession. Now, notably, wrong answer choices can also be too weak. This is most common in sentence equivalence and text completion, and it can sometimes even show up on critical reasoning in strengthen and weaken, where extreme answers are actually more likely to be correct, as they do more to support or detract from the argument. However, a weak answer choice is generally not as tricky as the too extreme answer choice, and thus is not as common. Verbal wrong answer trap number 4 is the answer choice from the wrong part of the passage. This is a funny one because the answer choice does draw directly from the passage, but it's not the answer to the question. In critical reasoning, this looks like attacking or supporting the premises in an argument instead of the conclusion and the conclusion's logical connection to those premises. These answer traps are particularly tempting to test takers who haven't nailed down their critical reasoning strategy yet. However, if we take the time to break our argument down into its constituent parts and remember that premises are meant to be taken as incontrovertible fact, then these can be avoided. In reading comprehension, these answer choices typically reference a detail that is in the passage and absolutely could be relevant to a different question, just not the question at hand. These tend to be the most tempting when we're trying to get a quick win by relying on random word matching between the answer choices and the passage, rather than ensuring that the answer actually answers the question. In sentence equivalence and text completion, the wrong part of the passage answer trap convinces you to take a hint for your answer from the wrong place in the passage. So rather than relating your answer correctly back to the keyword, you relate your answer back to a different idea in the text that doesn't logically match up to the blank you're trying to fill. The final verbal wrong answer trap is the answer choice that's not in the passage. In the previous wrong answer choice, we brought information from the wrong part of the passage. In this answer choice, we bring information that isn't in the passage at all. Now, like the opposite answer choice, this seems like it should be obvious and easy to avoid, but like the opposite answer choice, it's trickier than you'd think. In both critical reasoning and reading comprehension, these answer choices are incorrect assumptions. These are things that seem like they should be in the passage or seem like they logically follow from the information in the passage, but actually aren't or don't. These answer traps involve subtle shifts in language that take the answer choice beyond the scope of the passage, generalizations that take the answer choice beyond the scope of the passage, and unstated premises that are just that, unstated in the passage. In sentence equivalence and text completion, not in the passage wrong answers prey on our knowledge of a topic from the real world, introducing words and phrases that fit the context we usually find the passage topic in, but that don't fit the context of the passage presented to us on the test. Now, one of my favorite verbal tips is, when possible, to solve for the right answer rather than ruling out the wrong answer. It's faster, less taxing, and less error-prone. So in an ideal world, we wouldn't have to interact with these wrong answer traps at all. But it is unrealistic to expect that we will land on the correct answer right away every time. So familiarizing ourselves with common wrong answer traps so we can more easily recognize and steer clear of them is worth the investment. If this video helped you, please leave us a like, subscribe for more videos every Wednesday, and comment with any questions or suggestions for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.